Hello, and welcome to Mornings with Joel, commercial real estate podcast, where we focus on rising stars and established players in commercial real estate and talk to them about how they are building legacies in today's marketplace. We'd like to welcome and thank you all for joining us on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. We're very excited to have Solomon Colvin with us today. And one thing that's really interesting about Solomon is his work in the industrial space, which I think will be very exciting, and a lot of other things that he's been able to accomplish over his times. So, hey, man, how you doing this morning, first of all?
I'm doing good, man. You know, as the old saying would go, blessed and highly favored.
Okay, all right, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, very good, very good. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now, what's your focus, and then we'll dive into some other issues as it relates to it. What's the main thing that you're focused on right now and what you've been getting accomplished?
Oh, sure. So I'll just start with my name and then the company name. So Solomon Colvin III, of course, and I work with Sands Investment Group, and we're a national net lease brokerage firm. We're based here in Atlanta. We're one of 7 offices strategically placed throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And I focus and lead our industrial team here in our Atlanta office. And me and my team, we primarily focus on manufacturing, distribution of small to medium-sized businesses. So we focus a lot with owner users and trying to work with them and helping them to do sale leasebacks. And basically primarily throughout the country, but we're mainly trying to focus more of staying on the Southeast now. Okay. It's becoming more of a focus. So,
Gotcha. So for our guests that are with us today, explain what a sale leaseback is. What exactly is that? How does it work? And how does it benefit both parties involved with a sale?
Yeah. So a sale leaseback, basically what you're doing, you're monetizing the real estate on that for that particular owner. So let's just say the owner will come to us and say, well, hey, Solomon, we're running this operation and we're looking to grow from one location or one building or one facility to 3, 4, 5. But we don't want to finance it with money out of our pocket or through traditional financing through the bank. So we'll present with them an option to do a sale leaseback, basically where we would monetize the real estate and then use those funds from the sale of that real estate for them to pour back into the business, to grow the business, to grow the footprint, pay off debt, pay down various expenses. But the caveat to that is they have to sign a brand new lease with the new owner of the current facility that they will be doing the sale leaseback on. So helping them kind of work through that process, understanding the numbers, what it looks like. So that's kind of the advantage side. Some of the disadvantages to it, it could run them into where they have to pay various taxes, things like that over the long term. But if they're starting that process, if they're on that growth path, once you start it, you kind of got to keep it going from a sale leaseback standpoint in order for it to make sense long term.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a way for the person to keep their operation running exactly where it is.
Absolutely.
But also have that cash in order to do some other things.
Absolutely. And to also help fund growth and expansion if they want to, open other facilities in that same area or maybe expand into other markets.
Right. And why would some people do that instead of a refinance of the existing facility?
It's just really down to personal choice and based on what their business model is and based on their finances. Because I talk to folks a lot of times where they'll tell me, well, Solomon, that's just not something that we want to do. We've looked at it. We've looked at the numbers. It just doesn't benefit us from a cost perspective to do that. Or they'll come back and say, we thought about it, but it just doesn't work for us at this particular moment in time. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the road after we built the business up, expanded a little bit within the current facility that we have, maybe we can come back around and review it at that point in time. So it just really depends on the individual and where the business is at that particular point in time.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. And then also, I know sometimes with a refi, you might not actually get enough cash to do what you want to do also.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I just saw a question pop up about what's the typical lease term on a sale leaseback. It can range. It can range anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, 25 year. Again, it just depends on that individual. Like, for example, we're currently working on the deal out of Tennessee where the guy wants to do a 10-year sale leaseback, but I showed him options of 15, 20, 25 and what it would look like from a cost perspective. But he didn't want to go with that high term because of the expenses that would be involved in it. So we're just going to stick to the 10-year. So it just really depends.
Okay, all right. And then you've also got to be in a position to get out of that lease in 10 years,
Absolutely.
Basically, yeah. So,
absolutely. And the interesting thing about it, the investor coming in, looking at that sale leaseback, they want to make sure you're a viable operation. First and foremost, can you pay the rent?
Yeah.
Can you pay the rent on time? And then can you pay the rent once the increases kick in if you have options to renew? Because typically it's a 10-year sale leaseback, 2 5-year options to renew. So they want to make sure that you can actually fund it throughout the course of that lease term.
Yeah, exactly. So very interesting. And you mentioned Tennessee. So does your office also cover the whole Southeast region, or because I would assume that you're taking care of Tennessee as well as part of your client base?
Yes, sir. So our offices are in Santa Monica. We have one in Philly, Austin, Texas, Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina,
right,
and in Atlanta. So we kind of work in tandem with the folks in Charlotte and in Philly along that East Coast corridor. So we have monthly and weekly calls on who's working on what, so we're not stepping on each other's toes. And like if I'm calling Joel, asking him about his building in Charlotte, making sure that the guy in Charlotte hasn't already called you like 6 to 7 times.
Right.
It just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So this is kind of interesting because we generally don't talk about industrial on the podcast here, and there's not a lot of people that are focused on it because it's not the glamorous real estate, right?
Absolutely.
It's not in the heart of the city, and it's not glass and 40 stories tall.
It's dirty. It's dirty.
Right. It's gritty kind of work, but it's caught a lot of attention because of the demand for it, and
absolutely,
especially with people shifting from your general retail to more of doing shopping online. I mean, all that online shopping is basically being done through storage facilities, and then you have data farms and things of that sort as well. So, do you guys actually handle data farms as well?
We do. So we handle anything and everything industrial. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, our firm, you heard the tagline, net lease investment firm. Mm-hmm. So the firm was founded on net lease retail. Mm-hmm. And then over the last several years, they expanded out to different product types, QSR, quick service restaurants, medical, drugstores, automotive, car washes, you name it. And then industrial actually came on board when I first started at the firm back in 2018. So June last month made about 4 years for me being with the firm. Mm-hmm. And when I started with them, they didn't have an industrial division. So I kind of kicked that off and we just kind of grew it out. And so now that we have 7 offices, you have probably anywhere from 2 to 3 guys, maybe 4 or 5 mm-hmm. that are focused on industrial in that particular office. And every group focuses on a different aspect of it. You may have some guys that are chasing cold storage. You'll have some guys chasing self-storage, mm-hmm. which falls up under the mantle of industrial. You'll have some guys focused on industrial real estate on the credit tenant side, like your FedExes, your DHLs, your equipment rentals, Sunbelt rentals, things like that. Mm-hmm. Then you have guys like me that focus on distribution manufacturing from an owner-user standpoint. And what that would mean, like I would call Joel because I realized and researched that you are running a distribution facility out of a building in, Charlotte or in South Carolina, and have a conversation with you to see where you are within your business. What are your plans for your real estate? Are you looking to grow? Are you at a stage in life where you're looking to retire? Or are you looking to just sell off and just get out of it totally? So in having that conversation, it helps us, it helps me and my team and everyone on our team to better orchestrate a plan to help you accomplish that goal.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Sounds good. Now, it's interesting. You mentioned also that they didn't even have an industrial division before you really got there and kind of kicked that off. So, let's go into a little bit of your background. How in the world did you get to be at this place where you are today, where you're kicking off the industrial division of a company? Did you used to work in a factory or something, or how did that go about?
Well, interestingly enough, when I came out of the REAP program, because I'm actually a graduate of Project REAP in 2012, the market was just in a real different place at that time. We were just coming off, '08, '09, the catastrophe that brought across the country. So things were starting to pick up a little bit in 2012, but not quite to where it is now and today. So, I came out of the class, I think it was like 12 weeks at that time, came out fresh, and just networking like crazy, networking, interviewing, setting up coffee meetings, working LinkedIn, just doing everything I could to try to at least get my foot in the door. Because my primary background was finance. So that's what I did in my previous life, everything from financial analysis to data analytics. So in my mind, I wanted to combine the two and just bring the finance over with the real estate, which I had been licensed since college, and I did residential for a number of years. So I just wanted to merge the two together and bring them over to the commercial side. Because in my mind, ideally, I wanted to start on the deal-making team as an analyst. Very low pay. Those positions are typically, I was cool with that. I just wanted to get my foot in the door.
Sure.
But man, I got every door slammed in my face and like for 5 years straight. It was interesting because during that time, REAP had came back on board. So I started volunteering with that organization and started helping to lead it for the Atlanta office. So my focus kind of turned more toward that and working with the folks coming through the program to kind of help them get on board and avoid some of the stumbling blocks that I was actually going through. But I just kept pushing and kept pushing. And then I had researched and found out about this company, Sands Investment Group, that was local. And I thought, okay, net lease brokerage firm that combines both, the finance side of it and real estate. It just makes sense. So I just started kind of chasing those guys down. And then I finally, lo and behold, finally got an opportunity, got the interview, got vetted, and then came on board. And at the time, believe it or not, it's funny you mentioned working in a factory. I was actually working part-time at FedEx as a forklift driver. I went back and got certified, and I knew as I transitioned into the brokerage side, I was going to need some additional income. Mm-hmm. So I'm working 6 to midnight, moving freight up and down a warehouse on Moreland. And so when I started with the company, I initially thought I would do banks. Again, finance. That's my background. Sure. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, I looked and did research and realized that it really wasn't a huge market for the sale of banks. Now, granted, everybody can find online a bank that's listed for sale. Mm-hmm. But compared to a Dollar General, can't compare. It's not even close, not as many, so to speak. So it just clicked, man. I thought, well, okay, I'm doing this freight, running this freight up and down the dock every night. Why not look into industrial? So I started kind of digging into that. And then I realized that nobody in our office was actually doing it. Now, a couple of the guys had actually did a deal or two here or there, but nobody never really took a deep dive. So I decided to just take a deep dive in it and I just decided to stick with it and been running with it ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's impressive. And, one thing I want to certainly give you credit for is being willing to hustle outside of your sweet spot. I mean, it's not a job with a shirt and tie, but, at some bank building, looking at financials, but being able to get out there and do what you need to do in order to put food on the table in order, until that point kicks off is certainly very admirable and something everybody needs to remember, right?
Yeah.
That you got to do what you got to do to eat. So very, very good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but why is industrial so hot? And what would you say is the hottest area right now? I mean, I've heard about data centers. I even tried to acquire some land near a data center that's going up in Douglasville. You also have, cold storage. One guy was just swearing up and down about cold storage. One of my boys bought Dollar Generals. So, I know about that. So you tell me, I mean, what's really the hottest thing right now that you would say in industrial, for someone looking in from the outside?
I mean, I would say anything, and this is based on our view and what we see day to day, the folks we talk to. I would say anything industrial if you can find the right deal. Now, of course, data centers are huge.
Mhm.
They're just so expensive. And it's just a real small net of folks focusing on that particular sector.
Mhm.
But it's just super expensive. Expensive to own, expensive to build. Cold storage, exact same thing. Expensive to own, expensive to build. Any bite-sized deal that you can get on the manufacturing side, on the distribution side, will prove to serve well long term. Because the ideal is, if you're kind of breaking into industrial, and I hear it all the time when we're talking to guys that have a whole suite of retail, but they're looking to shave off half of it
Mhm.
and take those funds and buy into industrial. They always start with one deal, whether it's a warehouse, whether it's a small manufacturing facility, small distribution. And when you hear distribution manufacturing, you think, oh my, like that's 100, 200,000 square feet. Not necessarily. You can have a building that's 5,000 square foot,
Mhm.
5,000 square foot building classified as manufacturing or distribution.
Mhm.
So one deal could lead you into other multiple deals as you continue to grow out your portfolio. So any aspect of it will prove to, be lucrative over time if you're looking to get into it and stay into it.
Right, right. So let me ask this: if I was looking to get into industrial, and you mentioned that really there is all sides of it. It just really depends on the deal.
Right.
Saying, what areas should I be looking in to do industrial? Because a lot of times you see these areas that are, factories in rural areas. You see industrial corridors, you see airports, you see interstate highways as being areas. What would you say to that? What are the real key areas that we need to look at?
Well, I would first take an assessment of, what is your goal?
Okay.
What are you looking to accomplish, whether it be short term or long term? Then what type of dollars are you looking to invest in?
Mhm.
And then what location ideally would you think to be in? Because everyone thinks top MSA, Charlotte, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Charleston.
Mhm.
But those areas are so tight right now as it relates to industrial deals. You have deals there, but they're expensive. So by them being so expensive, it forces you to move to the outskirts. Like ideally, like Atlanta would be ideal, but it's expensive. It's tight. So you might look further north, like in Rome, or
Mhm.
further south, McDonough, maybe Macon, maybe even further past Macon. So we would have a conversation around: are you comfortable with those potential areas? Because you may tell me, well, Solomon, I want to be able to ride by my building and take a look at it every day, which you do have folks that want to do that.
Yeah.
Some folks are very strategic, and I don't want to own any real estate that's not within a 10-mile radius of where I live or 15-mile radius of where I live.
Mhm.
So it makes it kind of hard to, find deals that make sense. But if you're brand new to it and you say, look, I got, a meal, maybe a meal, 2 meal, and I want to, it doesn't matter location wise, just find me the best deal that makes sense based on my projections and what I'm looking at, then that gives me more opportunity to put more opportunities in front of you that could potentially make sense. But anything along that, the East Coast, Midwest, as long as you're, of course, near a major interstate, for that last mile distribution, play, if that's ideal, or, just plain warehouse storage,
Mhm.
maybe even self storage, if that's something that would be ideal. But again, at the end of the day, I can give you the best deal that I feel is good for you, but if the numbers don't make sense, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And usually, are you looking for multi-tenanted opportunities or just purely single tenant? Because you mentioned that you mainly focus on net lease deals, so I would assume you're looking more at single tenant net lease opportunities. Is that really the focus, or does it matter, or does it again go back to what you want as a buyer?
What you want as a buyer. I believe in just really getting to know you to find out, again, what's the goal? What's your motivation, basically? Are you trying to grow a portfolio from start to end? Are you looking to do this to leave it for your family? Are you trying to build in some supplemental income for retirement? That really makes the difference on the type of deal that we need to search for and find. So it could be single tenant, it could be multi-tenant, or it could be vacant. I mean, we sell vacant buildings too, but the challenge with that would be, well, do you have tenant relationships? But you may say, well, no, Solomon, I don't. Do you have them? Well, we can work with you in finding a potential tenant for that particular space, but you have to have the long game in mind for that, because it could take some time. So, but that motivation is really key to make sure we, get the right deal for you.
Gotcha. All right, well, that sounds good. So, again, as you think through that, you say, okay, I want industrial to be part of the portfolio, maybe not all multifamily or not all this, not all that. And if you're going to diversify, it's really a matter of starting off with all those key questions up front, as opposed to just jumping out there saying, okay, I'm gonna buy this building and hope and pray that I get somebody to fill it. Because there are people that do that and get in trouble.
Well, that's a part of our day on a day-to-day basis. Like, most of our time is spent doing lead gen. So we're lead generating. We're on the phones constantly, cold calling. And again, reaching out to somebody like a Joel. Hey, I saw that you own this property. What are your future plans for it? We kind of have a script that we kind of run through. But again, we're not just looking to, and I tell guys this all the time, I'm in the brokerage business, but I'm an advisor first.
Okay.
I'm going to advise you on what I feel you need to do for this particular asset to make it a win-win. But I need to know more about it. I need to know more about the asset. I need to know more about you. I may realize, based on the information you share, maybe I don't want to work with this asset. Maybe I don't want to work with you. Maybe we just don't, and no, that's real. And so you're constantly having these conversations, meaningful conversations, to get to a place of kind of meet in the middle. Well, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. This is what I can bring to the table. This is what I can provide.
Right. All right. Well, no, sounds good. Now, I do want to pivot into another area here, but I want to open up the line also. We're kind of at that halfway point. So If you have any questions for Solomon, please put those in the chat. You can even raise your virtual hand if you choose to, and we'll go a little bit deeper into this discussion about industrial and other things. One thing I wanted to mention, and you mentioned this earlier, that you're a graduate of REAP.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations for that. Obviously, it's benefited you immensely. For those who might be listening to this podcast or downloading it, we've got about, I don't know how many shows we got now, maybe 40, and we've got about 2,000 downloads. So there are a lot of people listening to it, which we're happy about that. At least that sounds like a lot to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's awesome, man. Congrats. That's awesome.
I'm new in this podcast world. This ain't what I do for a living. So
that is awesome.
I appreciate that. But talk to us a little bit about REAP and the value of REAP and where you saw the benefit in being part of that program. And obviously now you do a lot of work behind the scenes as it relates to REAP as well. Why do you stay so involved and engaged?
I'm a servant at heart. Like, I like giving back. I like, helping others avoid various obstacles that, I may have encountered. Or maybe missteps that I had along the way. Now, granted, don't get it twisted. In this real estate business, on the commercial side, you're going to have your own set of obstacles. I mean, it's just hands down. Regardless of what sector you're in, you're going to run into those roadblocks. But if I can help shave off some of the typical roadblocks, like, who to talk to, make an introduction, or, what questions to ask, or, how to convey something, or how to look at something, or somebody says something to you that was this way, but maybe it wasn't that way. Maybe you're looking at it kind of wrong. So I enjoy doing that. And bar none, the program is just, and I'm not, just blowing smoke. The program is really awesome. It gives you an opportunity to come in for 10 weeks and sit down with folks, such as yourself. You came and actually presented, to our class, a couple of years back, and to meet folks like you in all different aspects of commercial real estate, whether it be multifamily, retail leasing, site acquisition, financing, debt consolidation, industrial, office, medical. And these folks take time out of their busy schedule to come to talk to you as a student about their background and what they do, how it relates to the current market, how they may have got into it, how they transition, and then what's forthcoming that you could look forward to if that's an industry that you desire to be a part of. And you get that in 10 weeks, which is, bar none, just, remarkable. To whereas you're out there kind of beating the pavement, trying to meet folks, networking, which is still good. But this is a program that kind of brings it to your doorstep. And I've just always enjoyed working with the program. And now, we have two awesome young ladies, leading the program, Black Girl Magic, and they're killing it. Deneen and Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah. Giving them that shout out, that plug. And they're doing an amazing job in leading the program. And the program is just continuing to grow by leaps and bounds here in Atlanta. And I'm kind of behind the scenes a lot, not in the forefront as much as I used to be when we were running the program, but I'm always available. I still talk to alums, in the program that might have questions or that might be considering job opportunities and they might need advice. I always make myself available because it's hard. Because we make up a very small portion of the industry still. And hopefully organizations like this, opportunities like I'm having now to speak to your audience will foster change and help more folks become, one, knowledgeable of the industry, and two, have an interest to get into it. But then three, they would have a suite of folks that they can connect with that can help them along the way.
Yeah. How important you think that is? Because that's a big point.
Oh, it's extremely important because, a lot of times in this industry, as I mentioned earlier, you may run into certain deals or certain folks that you're dealing with on these deals that might say something or might convey something that you don't quite understand. Granted, you got to have thick skin. Don't get me wrong. And everything is not intended to come off as a, strike or an insult at you. But being a Black man, if you're in an organization where you look to your left, you look to your right, you see no one but you, and that's it. And you're just kind of in that whole sea. And I experienced that, with my current company. And you have to learn how to navigate those waters because you're navigating that particular sea being the only one. Then you're navigating the sea of being on the phone, cold calling, reaching out to individuals that have no clue of who you are.
It's tough in itself.
Right. Or why you're calling them.
Yeah.
And then you're navigating a sea of, you got a couple of deals going and they're in the pipeline and they're right there at the end about to close, then they fall out. Now you got to start back over from ground zero.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it can weigh on you. And just being honest, it weighs on you, but it helps to have outlets like this where you can reach out to people like, look, man, I just had a crazy day. Let me run this situation by you. Want to get your thoughts on it. Or I'm having trouble with this. Can you take a look at this to make sure I'm reading this the right way? So organizations like REIT here in Atlanta, of all places, is extremely important.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah,
Bar none.
You bring up very, very good points. It's amazing because I know even for myself, once that recession hit, I thought it was the end of the world. Things were going so crazy back there in 09 and 10. And back then, you start to feel like, well, I had all these relationships and look at what's going on, right?
Right.
I got this problem, got that problem. But at the end of the day, having those relationships help pull you through. If nothing else, seeing what other people are doing, in order to make that next step to the next level.
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention, and as you're building those relationships, believe it or not, you're still learning.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to somebody else who is in the industry doing site acquisition. They're talking to you about what they're doing. That's still knowledge that you can take and use, and share with other folks that you're talking to try to make that transition in.
Yeah.
I just saw a question pop up about what various resources I used and leaned on, which is kind of a good segue. Again, like reaching out to like industry organizations like ICSC, NAOP. And really, for me, LinkedIn was my friend. Like I researched like crazy any and everybody who was in the industry on the not on the industrial side, but on the commercial side,
mm-hmm.
that was somewhere centered around finance, on a deal making team. So if I could send you a request and you accept it, if I could get a 15-minute meeting with you, I had it down packed. I'll need 15 minutes. I got 3 solid questions I'm gonna ask, and I'm good. And I just want the information. And I had to convey a lot of times, because sometimes folks will think, oh, you want a job or you want, kind of a hookup. Like, no, it's not that. I just want the information. Give me the information and let me take and do with it what I need to do with it. And you just have to just keep consistently doing it. Because one thing I would always tell the students and read was that when you get on this path or this track, whether it's brokerage, whether it's on the, corporate side,
mm-hmm.
once you start it, man, you probably will agree with this, you got to keep going. You can't stop. Because if you stop for a week, you will be forgotten about.
Yeah.
Somebody else will call that guy that you were about to call on that deal and get that deal listed. And then you'll be sitting there like, man,
yep.
I should have made that phone call.
You came in your backyard and picked fruit off your tree.
All day, every day. Savages.
Yep. That's the game, man.
That's the game.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you think about it as well. Like I think it was last week we had Mike Tabb, which is running real estate for Google right now. It's kind of amazing because of the years that have gone by. You never know how those dots will connect down the road, and to be able to pick up the phone and it's like, hey man, what's happening? And now we've known each other 15 plus years.
Yeah, awesome brother.
Yeah,
awesome
exactly.
Brother.
So. But it's building those relationships. And even though you might feel like there's no immediate value, there might be down the road. So build them anyway. Make those relationships, be friendly with people, never think you're superior than anyone else, and always just have an open door and an open heart to help people. And you can really get some value from that.
I would always tell the students too, when you're fostering relationships and meeting individuals, try to make it genuine on really wanting to get to know the individual and create the relationship. Don't approach it like, well, hey, you're in a position, can you give me an opportunity or can you recommend me for an opportunity? No, just have a real sincere interest on building the relationship. And if you do that, trust me, the opportunities will come.
Right.
And that's hard to tell an individual that's not in the industry and looking to get in. It's hard for them to hear that because it's like, man, that's easy for you to say because you're already in. Like, I don't want to hear that. I need an opportunity. I got bills, whatever the case may be. But I'm telling you, it works. It works. You got to stick to it and you got to be authentic because people can literally see through it. This industry, commercial real estate, although huge and big, when you really get in it, man, it is very small and finite.
Yeah.
There's only a few individuals making things happen, calling the shots, can really get deals done, moving inventory, moving assets, very few far in between. So you want to make sure you're that guy or young lady that they're saying, well, hey, I talked to so-and-so, I talked to them and met them, great individual, had a great conversation, bar none, liked them, had a good lunch meeting with them or whatever. You want to make sure that that can be stated about you in this industry because your name will spread. I can't tell you the number of times I'll call somebody on the phone, lead gen, and they'll say, well, I talked to so-and-so and they said, you were a good guy and I just had to, such. I'm like, Like,
Yeah.
who?
Where that come from? Yeah.
Who was that again?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't remember that, but it does come back full circle.
Yeah. And I can't emphasize that enough. I had mentioned about the benefit of receiving, things that you can receive as a benefit from knowing people for a long time, but really you're doing it out of a genuineness because you don't know if it's going to be fruit.
Right.
And I remember one guy that I worked with in the past, he came to me with some deals and stuff, and I checked him out. And I was like, yeah, this guy's, he ain't all about nothing. Can't close nothing, can't get nothing done. Why am I going to waste my time with him? But then I said, you know what? I was at that point too at one point where I was learning, I was trying to get things done. I had no idea how to close deals. It took time, but it took me also having those relationships and having people that I could talk to and that could help direct my steps. And so, wound up still working with this guy, and we're doing some big stuff now. All because
Awesome.
I didn't kind of give him the Heisman and say, get away from me, right?
Right.
But
I got you.
Yeah, but it was genuine, and turned out to be a real nice guy, and there's a lot of benefit to it. So it's really good stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting you say that. Just one other point. I had someone to reach out to me about being a mentor, for a commercial, and I'm putting that plug out there just in case they on this call listening, because I haven't had a chance to get back to them, but I'm gonna get back to them. It's just been a crazy couple of weeks, but it is important, man. I mean, you kind of take it as an honor for someone to just kind of look at you and say, well, hey, I see you're doing this. I would definitely like to have an opportunity to talk with you, maybe get some pointers for you. And then to go as far as to say, well, to mentor, to kind of, give me some proper steps to take. I mean, I feel honored about that because, I'm probably my worst critic,
Mm-hmm.
And I look at myself and my current business, it's going good, but in my mind, it should be here. It's on the way there.
Yeah.
But in my mind right now, talking to you right now, it should be here. So I'm pushing to get it there. And so that calls for doing a lot of different things, traveling, moving about, having various conversations to try to get the right opportunity in place. But then also knowing when to kind of slow down and then look back and then reach back and say, well, hey, I'm available if you got questions, if I can help in any kind of way, just let me know how I can be of service.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's an admirable thing. So we certainly appreciate that and appreciate all the work that you've been doing in that regard. So let's get back to you. If you were to identify your most ideal clients, who would that be? What would they look like? We have a lot of people on the call. We have people also that's listening in and will be listening in. Mm-hmm. So if we wanted to have your name surface to the top of that list, what would be an ideal situation for us to say, you know what, I need to pick up the phone and call Solomon?
I mean, anyone that is on one end looking to break into industrial, to buy some deals or looking at, kind of kicking off a portfolio of starting something from scratch, from small to eventually grow it, or someone who currently has assets that are looking to transition out maybe into bigger assets. I'm not a guy where I'm looking at, oh, you need to be spending 5, 6, 7 million or above for me to have the conversation. No, I'm going to have the conversation regardless of what the dollar amount is, because I don't know who you know. I don't know who you might know, who you're connected to. And I want to see if I can offer up value to help you achieve that goal. So no number is too small. I've worked on deals as small as 5,000 square feet all the way up to 100,000+ square feet. So, I mean, I'm open. It's just a matter of having that conversation. Anybody willing to have a conversation and share what their true motivation is and what they're looking to do. And then I see if I can actually help with that, I'm definitely open to it.
Okay. All right. Well,
and any part of the country, doesn't matter, Southeast, It could be West Coast, Midwest, doesn't matter. If I need to fly out and meet you, I'll fly out and meet you, not an issue. Wherever the deal is, we'll make it happen.
All right. And you got the resources for that, so that should be fine. Yep. I do want to ask you one other thing,
sure.
Because we'll be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. So, guys, if you got any other questions, make sure you put those in the chat or raise your hand as well. Be happy to get those in. But one thing I did want to ask you about, and this is something even for myself that's been going around in my head, is it better to buy, and again, it could depend on a lot of variables, but there's a lot of value. Say, for an example, in multifamily, we're buying, let's say, C-class properties and moving them up to B, for an example, right? In industrial, you have a lot of facilities that are run down, they're dilapidated, but they might not cost that much to renovate and get back up and going again. Have you found people find greater value in buying new properties or renovating old properties and selling them off that way, or renting them out that way? I mean, what do you see? Or is new construction, even with interest rates and the cost of construction, now the way to go?
Well, it's interesting you say that. We have that conversation pretty much on a weekly basis.
Really? Okay.
Because you do have a lot of industrial product out there that are Class C that is still could be a suitable property. But key factors would be, is it in the right location? How much square footage do you have on the building? Is it sprinkled? How high is the ceiling? Most buildings now, individuals, they want, 28 to 30 plus clear height. So to kind of, elaborate on that, like if you go in Sam's Club or Costco and you see the pallets sitting all the way at the top. So a lot of investors or a lot of owners need that space so they can maximize that height so they can store. Because if they max out all the space on the floor, they need to go high. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of older buildings out there that are just not high in ceiling height. They don't have all their older buildings. They might be metal buildings, metal roof might need to be repaired. And I was talking to a gentleman at one of the NAIOP conferences who actually focused on roof. Mm-hmm. That was his business. He did roofs, like brand new, revise them, whatever the case may be. And we were having that conversation. And the fact that in industrial, there's a space is really tight. There's like $1 billion worth of space that needs to be delivered. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, you have all of these older buildings out there that could potentially work for some of that. But if it's not well located, and then if the building is so old, do you just put a Band-Aid on some aspects of the building to get it up to par? Or do you just totally wipe it out and just build from ground up? And I think that's what a lot of people will eventually have to do that own the Class C buildings. If it needs a lot of major work, just to wipe it out and just kind of start to build from ground up. But to your point, building costs are just up extremely high. So theoretically, that's not ideal. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of make work what you currently have. So that investor coming in, he'll look at that and say, you're asking X amount for this building. What type of tenant do you have in the building? What type of, CapEx have you done on the building? Basically maintenance, roof work, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. How much power do you have going to the building? What are your costs? What are your expenses? That'll help determine for that investor if that deal is a viable deal. And that could just be a smaller deal for them in their portfolio just to kind of help offset inflation, as opposed to going after, Class B or Class A in some cases where those prices could be extremely high. So it just really kind of depends on the actual investor and what they're looking to do.
Okay. Well, sounds good. Like you said, it's kind of a loaded question, and the answer could be all over the place. So just kind of depends on exactly what you want to do. The last thing I do want to ask is demand. Obviously demand shot up because of COVID.
Right.
People staying home, working at home, and everything else. As we hopefully transition away from COVID and things kind of get back to normal, do you see demand for industrial going down at all?
Interestingly, I do not. It continues to, the pricing for industrial right now is just still kind of through the roof. We're seeing in some aspects, some crazy pricing for certain buildings in certain locations. Again, it all depends on location too, tenant, what type of credit. Of course, Amazon, FedEx, DHL, you're going to get a higher price point as opposed to somebody making, widgets. And to your point, in a rural area, down in Alabama or North Carolina, so to speak, no pun intended. So it just really kind of depends, but I don't see demand going down anytime soon. Now, will it eventually correct itself? I do see prices correcting themselves just due to inflation and interest rates rising. I think the Feds are supposed to bump the rate up a little bit more this week, if I'm not mistaken. So I see that allowing prices to be corrected, but for industrial, I don't see it going down. If anything, it'll correct itself, but I think it still will be a strong demand for it. People want it. They can't get enough of it at this point.
Well, good stuff. I don't think retail is necessarily ever going to go back to what it was when you can sit at your house and click a few buttons and get what you want delivered to your house. So it's there's always going to be that demand, in my opinion. Let's get this question in from Tamika Clark. Tamika, if you want to unmute, that'll be great. There you go.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Solomon.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for sharing today. So my question was, like, the buildings that you guys go after, are they currently already, well, they can't already be under lease. I could think I'm asking my own question. So they actually own the building? Do they usually carry a note? You just look at them and then figure that all out to how to buy them back? I'm just trying to.
No, I get it. It's all of that. It could be the owner of the building could have a tenant that's leasing the building, or the owner of the building could have the building vacant. The owner could actually have debt on the building still, or he could own it free and clear. So it just really depends on that particular owner of that particular property and what they have going. That's why it's so important for us to really have that conversation to get a clear understanding. Like, well, do you have a tenant in the building? If you do have a tenant, what type of lease term do they have left? You know, if it's a credit tenant, okay, it's just, you know, we understand like, okay, it's top-notch credit, FedEx, DHL. But if it's a company we never heard of, you know, what is the credit? What are the finances? What do they look like? Because that owner is going to say, well, Solomon, I want to try to achieve this amount for that particular building. Well, if the finances don't line up, then we might not be able to get you that amount. So it just really depends. If your building is not in good shape, you know, if you haven't tended to the roof, or if you're having some electrical issues, all of that's going to play a part in the pricing if we were to take that, you know, building out to list it and sell it.
So do you do any improvement on the buildings when you do go in and buy them, or do you just kind of, how is that, if you do, you know, if it needs work?
Well, it depends on the buyer that we're working with for that particular property. Now, we always bake in due diligence for the properties that we, you know, sell, or we, you know, work with buyers to buy. And that due diligence can range from, I've seen it as low as 30 days as to as high as 90 days. And within that time frame, the individual buying the building, they will have various inspectors go out to inspect the building, inspect the roof, inspect the electrical to make sure the building is up to par. And whatever they find out that's not pleasing, they bring it back to the table. We have that conversation. And then if we have to chop down the price a little bit, then we have to go back and sell that to the actual owner of the building that's trying to sell it. Well, hey, Mr. Owner, this is the report. You know, you didn't take care of the roof, or they found this. Unless you're willing to fix it, it's going to have to come off the top of the price.
All right.
Does that?
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Tamika. We appreciate you participating today. So, Solomon, it's been great, man.
Yes, it has. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, this has been very insightful. And, you know, I'm definitely going to talk to you offline. There's been a few things I've been looking to stick my toe in industrial, you know, because there's some huge opportunities there. And hopefully not as much maintenance as like an apartment building where you have a lot of tenants moving in and out, especially if you do some of the single tenant lease type properties. So we'll talk more about that. But I certainly appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to talk with us today. And is there any final words that you want to share with our guests as we, look at possibly doing business in the industrial space?
No, I mean, you know, definitely keep your eye on the market. I mean, deals are popping out and coming out every day. My information is online. You know, definitely reach out to me if you see a deal. If you're thinking about investing in a industrial deal and you see a deal and you want to know if it's a viable deal, please reach out, share it with me. I'll walk you through the process, help you with it. I mean, it's just really a lucrative time right now for industrial. I mean, it's the best time to get in it, you know, on the investor side, mm-hmm. and even on the brokerage side of it, if that's something that you're looking to do. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that they do have a couple of corporate opportunities on the industrial side too, if you work for like a corporate firm or something like that. But, you know, it's exciting times. Don't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. Just like you said earlier, you just got to be prepared to get a little dirty because, you might have to, walk a couple of buildings and walk through some dirt and all that good stuff. But if you're okay with that, then you cool.
Yeah. Just bring your boots, put them in the trunk.
That's right.
That's all good.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, Solomon, we certainly appreciate it. For all of you with us today, this has been the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Special thanks to Solomon Colvin for being the third, for being here today. We certainly appreciate that. And hey, man, I know I'm going to see you around at some function probably in the next few weeks. So,
yes, sir.
Always good to see you and catch up with you. And thank you for being here today. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Mornings with Joel, commercial real estate podcast, where we focus on rising stars and established players in commercial real estate and talk to them about how they are building legacies in today's marketplace. Please check back weekly to hear our upcoming guests.